Well, good morning, everybody. I'm Jan Erickson from Stepping Aside, and welcome to As Above, So Below, a Rune and Tarot reading for Monday, the 4th day of April 2022. Well, we had a windstorm. I guess we're supposed to have one today. It started last night. It didn't wake us up though, so it must not have been too bad. Maybe it's going to get worse here throughout the day. It started to rain, so that's good. But here on the high desert, we have mega wind anyway. It's just another day really. But we were supposed to get gusts up to like 50 miles an hour, so that's kind of a lot. But I don't see, my husband's been outside and he doesn't see any debris down, so it must not have hit us. So either it's going to be happening here throughout the day, which I thought it was supposed to be through the middle of the night when it was the worst, but we'll see. But I guess we're supposed to have wind tomorrow too, but I don't know. We can always tell because of what the chickens do and all of the other birds that are around here. We can always tell because their behavior changes. So that's when we know something's up, is we look at them and they just tell us. It's like I know where my irrigation water is out in the pasture by where the blackbirds are, because they'll go to where the water either just is getting to or what have you. So my husband will say, well, I need to go up and check. I said, well, just look for the birds. He's like, what? I said, just look to see where the birds are. They'll tell you where the water is. And so he tried it, and sure enough, I was right. I don't know. Well, I hope everybody's had a good weekend, and I think we'll go ahead and we'll start here with the esoteric influences for today. Everything's gone out. It's up on everything's out on the blog. The 4 posts I put up. I also did an April tarot post, so a post for a tarot reading for the month. That's over on the blog at Stepping Aside as well. I added a little more stuff if you click on show more, it opens it up. It's always shown where all the links to where I am, the links to the blog and all that. But I also added something on there that describes what I do here. And I had written it like, I don't know, God, maybe a year ago or at least 8 or 10 months ago. And it was still sitting there. And I'm looking at it, I'm thinking, why did I do that? And then I remembered I was going to put that on there, and I never did. So I did that this weekend. So it should be on today's video. So just click on that and you can look and see what's there. If anything interests you, you can follow me over on Twitter or wherever. And let's take a look at today's esoteric influences. We have a numerology of 4 with the 4th day of April. Structure, foundation, pragmatism, order, grounding, and patience is what the 4 represents. The rune today is Sowillo, the as above side. The sun, higher awareness, self-confidence, healing, illumination, and the will are its key words. For the Geomancy rune today is conjunctio, or joining or union or agreement. The sun's in Aries, the moon is in Taurus until it transitions into Gemini at 8:04 this evening. And the planetary governance today, if you're working magic, is the moon. So it's best to let a pragmatic or risk-averse perspective inform any agreement you make today so that you can move forward with self-confidence. That said, if you're feeling uncomfortable at all, it may be signaling something you've overlooked, so pay attention to your inner voice, especially if challenges arise that you're unprepared to address. Any disruptions experienced may be reflecting an ineffective response, and you could benefit from some additional perspectives that take a measured approach based on past experience. Withdraw from the situation if further examination is needed, or if it seems that the needs of others are ignored. So that's the influences for today. We'll look again at Thursdays when we come back again on Thursday for this. But for now, let's go ahead and if this is your first time here, welcome. We do a little chatting before we get started here. And let's go ahead, though, and take a rune from the Elder Futhark bag. I've been doing bags for the tarot cards I have. This is the new one for the cards I use here. I did another one last night. It just seems that when I start crocheting, I can't stop. I did 3 blankets for the grandchildren, and so I don't know. I just kept going. So we'll see how well my hands work today. I covered them in Dit Da Jiao. I make that myself, and I have a I was looking at another recipe, and I added a couple things to my own from that, and I like it. It does pretty well. I mean, things are working pretty good this morning. Let's see. We have Ewaz for our rune for today. Now, Ewaz is about the intuitive bond we share with one another. You can look here, and it's essentially Laguz, forward and reverse, and it meets in the middle, so we flow together in harmony. But basically, it's the intuitive bond we share with one another. There's a lot of the flow of intuition. There's the other one in Laguz, and so Ewaz can also be used in trance work. You can view it as like a doorway into the trance state, or if you're doing like a journeying working or something. But I think that the next one, of course, is Manaz, and that's the individual within society. So Ewaz itself, though, would be a more personal type of an experience. You can look at it as the Merkaba, the soul vehicle. So it's a more personal experience. You could think of it as self, another side of self. That would be another interpretation. But again, it's how we flow in, how well we allow spirit awareness to flow into everything that we do. So let's take a look at the Geomancy rune for the day. That's going to be the below side, the earthly side of self. Oh, well, that's easy. It's Vaya. That's right on top. Vaya is the path. It's the way. It's a journey. It's alignment, self-determination, individual focus, maybe. But when you align it with Ewaz, if you're looking at it with the self and the other side of self, if you look at all of creation as a projection of consciousness, and it's each soul's projection of consciousness that they're experiencing in form, then you're really looking at everything else around you as the other side of self. So all of the people you bring into your experience, it's the other side of self, and it's that interaction between the soul and the experience that it's having, basically, and all the projections that it makes. And so what path are you going to take today? Is it going to be one that is infused by that awareness, or is it going to be solely an ego focus? So let's take a look at the cards, though, and see if they can give us a little more details about what that's supposed to look like today. Now, I've already been shuffling, so I'm not really going to do any more of that. I'll just sort of shuffle the cards a little bit, and let's go ahead and lay down 3 cards. Well, we have one from all 3 pantheons represented here. We have the, and I know this looks horrible, doesn't it? It's not. It's actually a good card. This is, but there's 10 swords piercing it's the guy's back, and he's dead on the ground. How can that be good? Because you can see the lights returning. That's why. Anyway, we have the 10 of swords. From the minor arcana, we have the magician, the first card 1, of the major arcana. I'm trying to clear my throat here. There's so much pollen out there. I mean, I don't even have to go outside, and my husband opens the door and it comes in. Then I can't breathe. So we have a lot of heavy pollen right now. Pollen alerts are happening every day here. It's crazy. But anyway, this is the magician. So that's card 1 of the major arcana. And then we have one from the court. The Knight of Swords is one of my favorite ones, although I do like the Knight of Pentacles. I love the horse. It's gorgeous. But knights are so helpful. You know, he's going back and defending basically tradition. This is a directional thing. If he was going the other way, then you'd have like the I think the let's see, the Knight of Cups and the Knight of Pentacles are going toward the future, but the Knights of both Swords and Wands are going toward the past, and so there's something about tradition here that he's defending today. But we'll take a look at that here in a minute. I don't think I'm going to try to rearrange the cards here, but because I think that we're going to let, I think starting with the Ten of Swords makes sense, because it shows an ending, or and a beginning. The 10 reduces to 1, so that's new beginnings. But if you were to terminate the ends of the 10, let me do that here, and I'll show you what I mean by that. I say this a lot, and if I don't draw it out, then nobody knows what the heck I'm talking about. It's like, what do you mean terminate the ends? Here's your Roman numeral 10. But look what happens if you terminate the ends. You get Dagaz. And Dagaz is the rune toward the end of the Elder Futhark, where we're talking, it's a new day. And what we're talking about there is the end of one phase and the beginning of the other. And you're standing in the center on the precipice of that experience. And so here you have the individual, 10 swords piercing his back on the ground next to a body of water. In the distance are mountains. You can kind of see you can see barely this black line right here, which is sort of similar to the line of demarcation, the dual one you see in other. They're not in all the tarot cards, but they are in some of them. And when I see that, I see that was then and this is now. So because of all the challenges that maybe faulty perception has created for you, now that's over with, and a new day is dawning here. Now you don't see the sun, but you see the implication of it with the yellow, all right? And you see you can start to see the gray of the clouds, the night is lifting. So you have that sense of one period's over and a new period is beginning. So in this case, we see in the 9, you sit up in bed there, the guy sits up in bed, and you see all the swords aligned this way. There's 9 of them in a pattern. And he's basically, the nightmare is over. The perspective is, now I know that I've got all this faulty perception. Now here I'm ready to let go of it and build anew. And to have a rebirth of sorts. Swords is the air element, so it's the mental side of things. It's justice, it's fairness, it's cutting through the crap. You see with the Queen of Swords, she's the sort of individual that cuts through nonsense, cuts through illusion, and doesn't put up with it, doesn't tolerate it. It's a very witch type of experience with that, where witches are known for that. They cut through the nonsense of things and try to get to the heart of something, try to reveal the truth of something. It's just how someone is by nature when someone identifies that way. But it's also a very female kind of experience, isn't it? Even though swords and the air element is considered a masculine or projective type of energy, it's a very female type of thing to do, to want to get to the truth of something. So in that sense, we're trying to gain understanding, which is, again, a very feminine or receptive type of an energy. So we're not going to get too caught up in the fact that he's dead on the ground with all these swords piercing him, because now he's going to manifest new awareness with the magician. He holds his hands in the position of as above, so below. You see that again in the devil card, but the difference there is the devil is a goat-headed figure, and he holds a torch that points down toward form here, whereas the magician holds a scroll upwards toward heaven. You see abundance. He has lilies, he has roses, he has the garlands of spirit up here. So he's drawing down spirit energy into his manifestation. And you see here on the table, you see here you have a staff which represents wands or the fire element. Here you have the coin which represents pentacles or the earth element. Here is the golden chalice which represents cups or the water element. And here you have the sword again which represents the air element and our mental faculties. And so because we also have a Knight of Swords, this is really about perception here. This is about justice. This is about fairness. This is about honor and dignity. And so whatever we let go in the 10 to begin anew, we're manifesting now through the magician. Magician comes after the fool. You have the triplicity of the fool, the magician, and the high priestess. And then you can also look at a triplicity of the magician, high priestess, and the empress, who then gives birth to creation. After the magician takes care of the physicality of life, the high priestess comes in and takes care of the subconscious or the unconscious aspect of self. And together, then with all of that, the leap of faith taken by the fool, all of that comes together into the Empress, where she gives birth to creation. And so here we're going to give birth in this case to new perceptions that we've let go of in the 10. Now, also part of that is we want to be vigilant. Knights are vigilant. In this case, the Knight of Swords, you can see he's cutting through his swift movement is possibly breaking up the sketchy clouds above. He's really going against the wind, isn't he? But he's doing it. He's going backward he's going back into the past in a sense, and he's trying to strengthen the resolve of the magician, the experience from the magician. Basically, with the Knight of Swords. Basically, we're talking about someone who's courageous, he has integrity, he accepts challenges, and all of that. So the idea of letting go of all of this may be a struggle for people. Although this card seems to this seems to suggest non-resistance now at this point. Well, I mean, dead on the ground, it would. But at the same time, that's not so easy to do, especially if you're in a group of people or surrounded by people that are going to resist your doing so. You know, you may have to leave the group, in other words. You may have to steel yourself, have the steely resolve, in other words, to do what you need to do to let go of perceptions that are no longer serving, that are clouding your perception. And the Knight wants to help with that. Because you can interpret those sketchy brown clouds up there as perceptions that still want to creep in. And it's almost like he's going backwards in time, saying, no, you're not doing that. Have faith, in other words. Have faith that you can do this, that you can let go of perceptions that don't serve you, that you can come together in a better balance with ewas, either with self or the other side of self, to come into a better balance that way, and to follow a new path. Vaya suggests a new path. And so maybe, again, the path involves perceptions in this case. Let's take one more card, just for good measure. We'll take the 13th one for randomness sake here. Now, you can look at this in two ways. Excuse me. Typically, it's traditionally read as having your head in the clouds and being unrealistic. This is a suit of cups, or the water element. It can indicate illusion. It can indicate what it is you're letting go. The 7, though, is balance. And so the perceptions perhaps you had that you're letting go of in the 10 created an imbalance within you. And so now you're manifesting something new. But maybe this further defines what it is that you're letting go of. It's about being unrealistic. Now, the other way of looking at this, though, the other side of the coin, is that you're dreaming new dreams. It's helping you to get out of the old perceptions, and it's allowing you to focus on something new. So in that regard, it could modify the magician, not just the 10 of Swords. But I suspect that it's probably more about the 10 of Swords. That part of it's reinforcing the notion of why you're letting go of it, that perhaps things were just unrealistic. You were expecting things that were never going to come to pass, that were going to stay in the dream state, and have never been realistic to even begin to manifest. But, but if you want to look at it in a positive way, you can do that. It still doesn't really change the reading at all. It just further defines it. Either when you manifest something, it's going to be something that maybe you're a little more in control of, that comes directly from you instead of from the impact of other people and their perceptions and their belief structures. But I think today what we're doing is we're examining, a new path is opening, and we're examining who we are within that. How are we manifesting the world around us, and the experiences that we want to have? Do we want to stay in conflict maybe, or stay in perceptions that just simply don't serve, that aren't even based in reality? Because that's how you can look at these two together. Their perceptions themselves weren't based in reality. They were based in somebody else's agenda, maybe your own, but maybe the agenda of someone else. And I only say that because there seems to be such a cult-like experience going on in this country right now, and maybe even around the world, of where, I mean, if you look at the example of the war in Ukraine, the aggression on Ukraine, that's that guy. Putin's head is in the clouds here. It's not happening for him. Whatever it is he wants, whatever nonsense he desires, trying to take over another country, who's sovereign, who has a right to exist on their own, who has a right to not have awful things happen to them as a result of this. The war crimes themselves, you see, that could indicate for him, if this was a reading for him, it's like, come on, man, your perceptions are nonsense. It's a bunch of BS. And it's all based on this lunacy, this idea that you can have whatever you want to, and if you don't have it, you can just go take it from somebody. We see this in our personal lives, in families who take from one another, or friendships that take from one another, or neighbors that take from one another, instead of trying to find a way to either stay on your own lane, but instead you want what the other person has, and so you're just going to go take it. Well, in terms of the cult aspect of it, though, you have charismatic people right now that are saying all this stuff, and people, they say enough that resonates with each one person that suddenly they start listening. And over time, the repetition of it is what creates the cult. They give up their own sovereignty, in other words, in service to this individual that's charismatic and they think has all the solutions and all the answers. Well, again, that's an expression of the Seven of Cups, and basically it signals the need to let go of all that stuff. But once you get to that mindset, it's very difficult to let go of it. I mean, we saw a lot of that with other cults in the 70s, when all the 70s and 80s, when you saw the deprogramming of people, kids that would get involved in this or that, their parents would send somebody to go kidnap them and take them to a deprogramming center where they could have all that, but that at the same time, see, it didn't always work. And so the child in question, no matter how old that child was left sort of bereft and wandering. They really didn't. It was in other words, it was difficult. Their trust had been compromised so badly all across the board that they didn't know who they could trust at that point. So again, you can get yourself into these situations, I think, where perceptions, no matter how they get there, whether you come up with them on your own or they're given to you by someone else, at some point you have to come to the realization that that's not working for you, that it's not realistic, that maybe it's someone else's agenda who's trying to manipulate you, you see. And at that point, you let it go and you remanifest something that's more realistic, that's more grounded in spirit, basically. Higher awareness is going to tell you that this other stuff is nonsense, and you've got to get away from it. And then comes the extra added push from the Knight of Swords, who's willing to cut through the nonsense of it and keep you on track, to keep you on the via energy, you see. So again, this may seem like an external force, but in fact, this is the force inside, the air element operating inside, that's saying, no, stay on the path now. And don't sink back into the illusion of the 10 of Swords and the 7 of Cups that got you to this point where you realize it's time now to manifest something else. So that's a pretty spiritual reading, don't you think? Especially opening it with Ewaz. That's a really interesting rune. I've studied it a great deal and thought about it a great deal, and I realize some of the interpretations I give, some of them are the traditional ones, but some of them are a little more spirit-based, that the idea of the self and other side of self working, or the polarities maybe, the masculine and feminine, or receptive and projective presence coming in together in harmony and in balance, or the idea of soul and ego coming together in some kind of balance. Generally, though, that's a little more heavily weighted onto spirit, but still, it could still reflect that same type of interaction, that same type of flow or laguz energy, forward and reverse, coming together and meeting in the middle. In a similar fashion, like when I showed you how, when you could terminate the ends of the numeral of the Roman numeral 10, you get Dagaz, and again you're standing on the precipice of something new, and that's reinforced by the Magician card as well. So hang in there. If you know that you're experiencing this, or if you know someone else that's experiencing this, whether they realize it yet or not. It could be that you're there to provide support for that individual when they do. I think eventually people realize they maybe they resist it for a while, but there are little things that come along the way and remind them that, hey, something isn't right about this. And if you're experiencing that, feel into it. And, get out of the mindset of it and feel into it and know what your heart tells you. Because your heart's not going to lie to you. And allow the intuition and allow empathy for yourself, but empathic awareness. If you're empathic at all, you know what I'm talking about here. You feel into the heart center of things, and you understand the emotion side of things, and you understand that something is off, something doesn't feel right. So maybe you want to access that aspect of self when you're thinking about these things, and get out of the headspace so much about it. Don't try to find reasons for why you should continue to believe what you do. If you know in your heart that there's something amiss, you've got to figure it out. You could be led down a path that's very, very self-destructive in the end, and you don't want that. You want to develop your own. You want to develop your own path that's based on higher awareness, and that achieves some kind of balance here that maybe is lacking right now for you. So I guess that's it. I guess we did it. Anyway. I can hear the wind outside. I don't know if you can hear it. This is a pretty sensitive microphone, so maybe you can. Maybe you can't, though. But I can hear the wind out there, and the birds are being quite quiet. The chickens aren't talking to one another. The roosters aren't crowing. They're just all kind of hanging out by. The chickens are in their house, and the roosters are right outside theirs. So, the boys are being quiet, and. So, take care of yourselves today if you're in the windy area. I think that there's supposed to be some storm coming in on the East Coast too. I think I read during the same time frame. So it seems like we're going to be experiencing some interesting weather across the country. But hang in there and come back on Thursday for another edition of As Above, So Below. And be good to yourself. Be good to one another. That's a little Elwaz flow of energy right there, and blessed be.